What would you do if the only way to save your dying brother was to beg a cold, heartless millionaire for help? Emma, a poor girl with nothing, knocked on his door with trembling hands. She didn't know that her tears would awaken secrets buried in his soul and change all of their lives forever. This is not just a story, it's a piece of someone's hidden pain, quietly waiting to be heard. In today's story, we dive into a moment that can change everything in the most unexpected way. Before we begin, where are you listening from? Canada? The US? Norway? Let us know in the comments, because stories may begin anywhere, but they connect us all. Stay with us until the very end, because sometimes what breaks your heart can also heal it. And if you believe stories can change lives, hit subscribe. Join our journey. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment. Your voice matters here. The rain drummed against the hospital window, casting a gray filter across the silent room. A young boy no older than 8 lay still on the bed, his small legs covered by a pale blanket. His chest rose and fell with slow breaths, but his eyes, dark, tired, and robbed of the innocence childhood should hold, remained open, staring at nothing. He hadn't walked for 3 years. Doctors had lost hope, and so had his father almost. In that same hospital corridor, a tall man stood with his back straight, but his heart broken. Adrian Sterling was a name whispered in business circles across the city, a ruthless tycoon, a man whose empire of steel and glass towered above everyone else's. Yet here in this sterile place, he was not the man of power. He was only a father, helpless against fate, and fate had brought someone else into this story. Down the hallway, a frail girl no older than 12 sat quietly with a worn notebook pressed against her chest. She was no stranger to the hospital. Life had forced her into its walls more times than she could count. Her name was Elara. Her clothes were faded, her shoes too small, and her face carried a maturity no child should bear. She had no family, no one to wait for her, no one to call her name. Yet when Adrian Sterling's tired eyes fell upon her that night, something changed. Something in her reminded him of a long-forgotten hope, and in the quiet exchange that followed, a promise was made, one that would test the limits of love, desperation, and destiny itself. "Make my son walk," Adrian whispered, his voice cracking as though the words were heavier than steel. "And I will adopt you. I'll give you the home you've been praying for." Elara clutched her notebook tighter. The man's eyes were haunted, desperate, but sincere. She didn't know how, but she nodded. And what she did next would leave the entire city speechless. Adrian Sterling wasn't used to silence. His world was one of constant movement, phones buzzing, boardrooms filled with arguments, factories roaring with the sound of progress. Silence meant weakness in his business. But here in his son's hospital room, silence was all he had left. He sat by the bed, fingers tracing the frail outline of his son's hand. Lucas, once a lively child who ran barefoot through their garden, now lay motionless. The accident had changed everything. One car crash, one cruel twist of fate, and his boy's legs had become lifeless. "Daddy," Lucas whispered weakly, his voice like a feather against the storm. "Will I ever run again?" The question sliced through Adrian's chest. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The man who commanded thousands, who struck fear into rivals, could not find an answer for his own son. That night, unable to breathe under the weight of helplessness, Adrian walked the hospital corridor. That was when he saw her. Elara. She was sitting on a bench tucked near the vending machine, her knees drawn to her chest, her notebook pressed close like a shield. Her hair was tangled, her cheeks hollow, but her eyes, large and deep, were fixed on the same rain he had been staring at moments earlier. Something about her presence stopped him. She looked like a ghost of innocence, carrying secrets too heavy for her small frame. "Why are you here at this hour?" he asked gruffly, though his tone lacked its usual authority. Elara looked up, startled. Her lips parted, but no words came immediately. Finally, she murmured, I don't really have anywhere else to go." Her voice trembled, yet it carried a strange strength beneath the cracks. Adrian frowned. "No family." She shook her head slowly. "No one that wants me." The words landed like stones in his heart. For a moment, he saw not a ragged orphan, but a reflection of himself, alone in his wealth, abandoned by fate. And then, almost without thinking, he spoke the words that would alter both of their lives. "If you can help my son walk again, I'll adopt you." The promise hung in the air, absurd yet undeniable. Elara blinked, her thin fingers clutching her notebook tighter. "Adopt me?" "Yes," Adrian said firmly, his jaw set. "A home, a family, everything you've been denied. But only if," he turned, his eyes filled with a desperation that stripped him bare. "Only if you can give my son his legs back." For the first time, Elara's lips curved into something close to a smile. It was faint, but it carried a light he hadn't seen in years. "I'll try," she whispered. Adrian's brows furrowed. "Try what could a girl like you possibly?" But before he could finish, Elara opened her notebook, revealing sketches, intricate drawings of braces, exercises, and devices that looked far too advanced for a child her age to have conceived. Adrian's breath caught. "Who taught you this?" he demanded. No one, she replied softly. I just know. And in that moment, Adrian Sterling realized this girl was not ordinary. She might just be the miracle he had been praying for. The hospital light flickered above them, humming softly as Adrian stared at the notebook in the girl's hands. Page after page was filled with precise sketches, metal rods, adjustable braces, diagrams of muscles and joints. It wasn't childish doodling. It was something else. Something extraordinary. Elara's hands trembled as she turned each page, revealing more of her hidden world. I've been studying, she whispered, almost ashamed. Whenever I found old books thrown away, I read them. And I watched. I watched the doctors, the therapists. I remembered everything. And when I couldn't sleep, I drew. Adrian's throat tightened. These weren't the ramblings of a desperate child. These were blueprints. His mind wanted to dismiss it as fantasy, but his heart dared to hope. You're telling me, he said slowly, his voice heavy with disbelief, that you, a girl living off scraps, think you can do what entire teams of doctors couldn't? Her Elara flinched but lifted her chin, her voice firmer this time. I don't think. I believe. And sometimes belief is stronger than knowledge. Adrian studied her, torn between cynicism and the fragile thread of hope he'd nearly lost. There was something about her, an energy he couldn't explain, as though she carried light in the darkest corners. He looked back toward Lucas's room. His son lay there, waiting, suffering, slowly giving up. What harm could it do to try? Show me, Adrian said at last. Elara's eyes widened. You mean it? He nodded, though uncertainty still lingered. If you truly believe you can help, then prove it. For the first time in years, Adrian saw her smile fully. It wasn't the smile of a child given candy. It was the smile of someone who had been invisible all her life and was finally being seen. That night, Elara sat at Lucas's bedside. She whispered to him gently, speaking not as a doctor would, but as a friend. Do you want to try with me? She asked softly, brushing the hair from his forehead. Lucas's weak eyes flickered toward her. Who are you? I'm Elara, she said with a small grin, someone who refuses to believe you'll never walk again. Lucas's lips twitched in something like amusement. No one had spoken to him like that in years, not with pity, but with conviction. Adrian stood in the corner, arms crossed, silently watching this fragile thread being woven between the two. He didn't know why, but he felt something. A stirring of life where there had only been emptiness. And then it happened. Lucas, fragile, trembling, moved his foot. Just a twitch, but undeniable. Adrian's heart leapt into his throat. Lucas, he gasped. The boy blinked in surprise, staring at his own toes as though they belonged to someone else. Elara's face lit with quiet triumph, though her eyes brimmed with tears. It begins, she whispered. But Adrian didn't notice her trembling hands, the way she swayed on her feet as though something inside her was breaking. Elara had given a piece of herself that night, and it would not be the last. The room was still buzzing with the impossible. Lucas had moved his foot. After years of stillness, after countless doctors' hopeless sighs, Adrian had seen it with his own eyes. It wasn't imagination, it wasn't luck. Something had changed. Lucas's little hand clung to Elara's sleeve, his eyes wide with a fragile spark of hope. Did I really do that? He whispered. Yes, Elara breathed, smiling through her exhaustion. You did. But Adrian noticed something different now. Her lips were pale, her breath uneven, and her thin shoulders shook as though invisible weight pressed down on them. He reached for her arm, steadying her. Are you all right? Elara forced a nod, clutching her notebook as if it held her together. I'm fine. It just takes a lot. A lot of what? Adrian pressed, suspicion and concern colliding. Elara lowered her gaze, silent for a long time. Then she said something that chilled him. Everything has a cost, Mr. Sterling. Nothing comes free, not even miracles. Her words hung in the sterile air, heavy, unexplainable. Adrian didn't believe in miracles. He believed in numbers, strategy, iron deals. But his son had moved. Something no fortune of his could buy, this frail girl had unlocked. He wanted answers, yet a part of him feared them. That night, when Lucas finally drifted into the first peaceful sleep in weeks, Adrian walked Elara out into the dim corridor. Tell me the truth, he demanded. What did you do in there? Elara hugged her notebook tighter, her eyes glistening with something close to fear. I can't explain it in a way you'll understand. I don't heal people. I give them a piece of myself. My strength, my will. She paused, swallowing hard. But when I do, it leaves me weaker. Adrian stiffened. It sounded impossible. Yet he had seen her nearly collapse after Lucas's small movement. You mean, he said carefully, every bit of progress for my son will cost you something. Elara's lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't answer directly, but her silence was enough. Adrian turned away, pacing. He was a man who struck bargains with precision, but how could he strike one when the currency was her life itself? Still, his boy had moved. For the first time in years, Lucas believed again, and that belief was priceless. Adrian clenched his fists. Then we continue, he said firmly, almost to himself. If you're willing, we continue. Elara looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with both hope and sorrow. Are you sure you want to pay that price, Mr. Sterling? He met her gaze, his voice trembling. If it means giving my son back his life, yes. Elara nodded slowly, but deep down she knew. Adrian Sterling had no idea what that price would truly cost, and neither did she. Because as they walked back into the room, unseen in the shadows, a pair of eyes had been watching them. Cold, calculating eyes. Someone else knew about Elara's gift, and they would stop at nothing to take it. The hospital was quiet at night, the hum of machines and faint footsteps echoing through its long corridors. Adrian dozed lightly in a chair beside his son's bed, while Elara sat on the floor, her notebook open on her knees. She was sketching again. New diagrams, new possibilities. Her eyes half-lidded with fatigue yet glowing with quiet determination. But outside that room, just beyond the glass window in the corridor, someone was watching. Dr. Maren Locke. She was a neurologist at the hospital, brilliant but notorious for her sharp ambition. Colleagues often said she cared more for prestige than for patients. Tonight, she had followed the whispers of a strange occurrence, a boy who had moved a limb long declared lifeless. And now she stood, concealed by the dim light, watching the orphan girl hunched over her sketches. Her eyes narrowed. This child is no ordinary patient. Inside, Elara suddenly froze, her pencil hovering above the page. A shiver ran down her spine, as though she could feel the weight of unseen eyes. Slowly, she turned her head toward the glass, but by then, Dr. Locke had stepped back into the shadows out of sight. Elara, Lucas's soft voice pulled her back. He was awake, blinking at her from the bed. Why do you stay here when you don't have to? Elara's throat tightened. She closed the notebook gently. Because I know what it feels like to be forgotten. And I don't want you to feel that way. Lucas reached for her hand, small and weak, but warm. You're not forgotten now. Adrian stirred at those words, opening his eyes to the sight of his son smiling for the first time in months. His chest ached with a rush of emotions he couldn't name. Gratitude, guilt, fear. Later, when Elara left to get water, Adrian stepped into the hall. That's when he saw her, Dr. Locke, standing too close, her expression unreadable. You're Sterling, she said smoothly. I heard rumors something unusual happened with your boy tonight. Adrian stiffened. And if it did? Dr. Locke's lips curved faintly. Then perhaps you've stumbled on something extraordinary. That girl, her chin tilted toward the direction Elara had gone. She's not just an orphan, is she? His jaw tightened. She's a child. That's all. Locke's eyes glinted. Children don't make crippled boys move their legs. I'll be watching her. Something about the way she said it sent a chill through Adrian. He walked back into the room shaken. When Elara returned, her eyes searched his face. What's wrong? Adrian forced a steady tone. Nothing. Just be careful, Elara. She tilted her head, confused, but said nothing more. That night, while everyone else slept, Elara sat awake, staring at her trembling hands. For the first time, doubt gnawed at her. She had given part of herself to Lucas, and she could feel how much weaker she already was. But the boy needed her. And across the hall, in the darkness of her office, Dr. Maren Locke wrote a note in her file. Subject shows anomalous capabilities. Must investigate. Potential for control and research. Elara had no idea her gift had just painted a target on her back. Morning light seeped through the blinds of Lucas's room, painting golden lines across his frail face. Elara sat at his bedside, notebook open, whispering encouragements as she guided him through small exercises. Her hands supported his ankles, urging his muscles to remember what his mind had long forgotten. Just a little more, she murmured. Don't think about the pain. Think about the life waiting for you outside this room. Lucas gritted his teeth, his brow damp with sweat. I can't. Yes, you can. Elara pressed, her voice both soft and fierce. Even if it's only one more inch, you are not your weakness. Adrian watched silently from the corner, his heart pounding as he saw movement. Tiny, trembling, but undeniable. Lucas's knee bent slightly, then again, before collapsing back against the bed. His son let out a shaky sob, half despair, half wonder. See, Elara whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. You did more today than yesterday. That's victory. Lucas's small hand clung to hers. Will I ever walk again? Elara paused, her throat tight. She wanted to promise, to say yes without doubt, but she remembered the weakness flooding her bones after every attempt, the way her body felt as if it was hollowing out. Still, she smiled for him. Yes, you will. Adrian's eyes burned. He wanted to believe her too. But outside the door, Dr. Maren Locke was listening. Later that afternoon, Locke cornered Adrian in the corridor. I've seen the records. Your son hasn't responded to treatment in years, and suddenly he's moving. That girl is the variable. Adrian's voice was low, edged with steel. Stay out of this. On the contrary. Locke replied coolly, I'm making this my business. A child with an ability like hers. Do you realize the implications? Therapy breakthroughs. Scientific revolutions. Imagine what I could do with her under proper supervision. Adrian's blood ran cold. She's not your experiment. Locke leaned in, her eyes sharp as glass. Then protect her if you can. Because others will one or two once they find out. Adrian stormed away, but her words lodged in his mind like a splinter. He had promised to adopt Elara, to give her a family. But could he keep her safe from vultures like Locke? That night, Elara collapsed in the chair, too weak to finish her sketches. Adrian covered her with a blanket, his chest heavy with guilt. She was burning herself out for his son, an orphan sacrificing what little she had left. "Why do you do this?" he asked softly. Her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she looked younger, almost like the child she truly was. "Because no one saved me when I needed it? Maybe saving him will mean I finally matter." Adrian's throat closed. He had built empires, but he had never heard words so raw. And yet, as Elara drifted into restless sleep, her hand slipped from the notebook. A page fell open, one Adrian hadn't seen before. It wasn't just sketches of braces. It was drawings of herself fading, each version weaker, paler, smaller. At the bottom, in shaky handwriting, 4 words chilled him to his core. "Every miracle takes me." Adrian sat in the dim hospital room long after Lucas had fallen asleep. The words scrawled across Elara's notebook page echoed in his mind like a curse. "Every miracle takes me." He stared at the girl sleeping in the chair, her small frame curled beneath the blanket he'd placed on her. She looked so fragile, as if the weight of the world could crush her at any moment. And yet, she was the only reason his son had smiled again. Adrian's chest ached with a war he didn't know how to fight. His son's chance to walk was tied to the slow unraveling of this girl's life. What kind of father was he if he let her keep sacrificing herself? But what kind of father was he if he took away Lucas's only hope? The businessman in him sought clear answers, calculations, but there was no equation for this. Only loss, one child for another. Elara stirred, blinking awake. She noticed the notebook in his lap and froze. "You saw?" Adrian nodded, his voice rough. "Tell me the truth. How much does this cost you?" Her eyes dropped, shame flickering in them. "More than I wanted to. But don't stop me, please. If Lucas walks again, then it's worth it. Worth it." Adrian's voice cracked, sharper than he intended. "You're a child. You shouldn't have to pay this price." Tears shimmered in her eyes, but she didn't back down, and Lucas shouldn't have to suffer. "Sometimes the only way to heal the world is to give what you don't have. That's what my mother told me before she died." Adrian froze. It was the first time she'd mentioned her family. "She used to say," Elara whispered, clutching her knees to her chest, "that broken things still have value. Maybe I'm broken. But if I can give Lucas what he lost, then maybe I'll finally be enough for someone to keep." Her words hit Adrian like a knife. She didn't just want to heal Lucas, she wanted to be wanted. To belong. For the first time in years, Adrian felt tears prick his eyes. He leaned forward, his voice shaking. "Elara, you don't have to earn love, you already deserve it." Her eyes widened, her lip trembling as if she'd never believed anyone could say that to her. At that moment, Lucas stirred awake, mumbling softly. "Daddy, did I move today?" Adrian rushed to his side, brushing his hair gently. "Yes, son, you did, and you'll move more tomorrow." Oh, Elara's eyes shone as she watched, a faint smile touching her lips. But as she looked down at her trembling hands, she knew tomorrow would cost her even more. Adrian made a silent vow then. "I will not let this girl break herself to save my son. There has to be another way." But just as he formed the promise in his mind, a knock rattled the door. Dr. Locke stepped inside, her eyes gleaming coldly. "Mr. Sterling, we need to talk about the girl." Adrian's jaw tightened as Dr. Locke stepped into the room. She didn't belong here, not in this fragile sanctuary he and his son were barely holding together. Elara instinctively pulled her notebook close to her chest, like prey shielding itself from a predator. Locke's smile was thin, her eyes sharp. "Mr. Sterling, I don't think you understand what you have in front of you. That girl isn't just a child. She's a phenomenon. Whatever she's doing, passing her strength, her will, whatever it is, it's beyond anything medicine has ever recorded." Adrian stood, placing himself between Locke and Elara. "She's not your experiment." Lockie's gaze flickered past him to Lucas, who was half asleep, his small chest rising and falling in fragile rhythm. "And what about him? Do you want your son to walk again? Because let's be honest, Mr. Sterling, you can't do this alone. The girl won't survive much longer without guidance. With me, with my research, she could learn to control this ability. We could make your son whole again." Elara's fingers tightened around her notebook, her knuckles pale. "You don't want to help Lucas. You want to own me?" Lockie's eyes gleamed, unbothered by the accusation. Ownership is such a crude word. But imagine, Elara, your gift could heal thousands, millions. Do you really think hiding in shadows with this man will change the world? Or will you be forgotten again, just like before? Adrian's voice cut through the tension, cold and sharp. "Enough." He stepped forward, his towering presence forcing Locke back a step. She's under my protection now. If you come near her again, I'll bury you under lawsuits before you can blink. A Lockie smile didn't waver, but her tone hardened. You can't keep her hidden forever. When the world learns about her, you'll lose her. One way or another. As she turned and walked out, her heels clicking like a gavel striking doom. The silence left behind was suffocating. Elara hugged her notebook, trembling. She's right, isn't she? Someone like me can't stay invisible forever. Adrian crouched in front of her, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. Listen to me. You're not a weapon. You're not property. You're a child who deserves a home. I promised you that, Elara, and I don't break my promises. Her eyes filled with tears she fought to hold back. But what if helping Lucas destroys me before I ever get that home? Adrian swallowed hard, unable to answer. He glanced at his son, then back at her. The war in his chest raged louder than ever. Save his boy, or save this girl who had already given too much. Before he could speak, Lucas stirred and whispered, Daddy, don't let them take her. She's my friend. Adrian's heart shattered. His son, broken and fragile, was begging him not just to protect his legs, but the girl who had given him hope. And as Adrian held both of their gazes, he knew no matter what it cost, he would have to protect them both. But outside the room, unseen doctor, Locke was already making calls, summoning people far more dangerous than herself. Elara wasn't safe anymore. The days that followed were fragile victories. Each morning, Elara coaxed another flicker of movement from Lucas's legs. Each night, she grew paler, her hands trembling more, her body giving away pieces of itself. And each time Adrian felt the noose tighten around his chest. He tried to hide his fear from them both, wearing the mask of the confident businessman who could fix anything. But inside he was unraveling. Lucas was blossoming again, smiling, laughing weakly at Elara's jokes. Yet Elara herself was dimming, fading like a candle burning too fast. Adrian's guilt gnawed at him. He was watching one child rise while another quietly sacrificed herself. On the fourth night, while Elara slept slumped over Lucas's bedside, Adrian slipped into the hallway. That was when he found Dr. Locke waiting, leaning against the wall as though she'd been expecting him. You're killing her, Locke said bluntly. Adrian's fists clenched. I won't let you near her. Locke tilted her head, her voice smooth, persuasive. And yet, without intervention, she'll collapse within weeks. Maybe sooner. You think you're protecting her, Sterling, but all you're doing is letting her burn out in front of your eyes. I'm offering her survival. Her words sliced into him, because part of him knew she wasn't entirely lying. He had noticed how quickly Elara was weakening. I won't hand her over to you, he growled. Lockie's smile didn't falter. Then watch her die. She slid a card into his hand before walking away. A number. A choice. A temptation. Adrian stared at the card long after she left, his hands shaking. The next day Lucas managed something miraculous. He lifted his leg slowly, shakily, but fully, and lowered it again. He cried with joy. Elara wept into her trembling hands, and Adrian felt his heart soar and break all at once. You did it. Elara laughed breathlessly, hugging Lucas. But Adrian saw how her body swayed, how her lips were almost blue. Later, when Lucas fell asleep, Adrian confronted her. Elara, you can't keep doing this. You're killing yourself. She looked at him, her face pale but her eyes burning with stubborn fire. And if I stop, Lucas loses hope. He goes back to believing he'll never walk. Do you know what that feels like? To wake up every day thinking you'll never be enough? Adrian's throat closed. He did know. In his own way, he'd lived it. Elara, he whispered, voice breaking, I can't watch you die. Her gaze softened. Then don't watch. Just believe in me. Adrian wanted to scream, to forbid her, but Lucas's voice suddenly stirred from the bed. Daddy? Did I do good today? Adrian swallowed hard, forcing steadiness. You did amazing, son. Lucas smiled, eyes already drifting closed again. And as Adrian tucked him in, he realized he was caught in an impossible trap. To save one child, he might have to lose the other. That night, as he finally drifted into uneasy sleep in the chair, he didn't notice the shadow slipping into the hospital corridor, or the faint click of a door unlocking down the hall. Dr. Locke wasn't waiting anymore. She was moving. The days that followed were a blur of tension and exhaustion. Maria spent every waking moment at Ethan's side, coaxing him to try again and again. She guided his steps, steadied his legs, and whispered encouragements that carried more hope than certainty. At times, she saw flickers of progress, his knees trembling with new strength, his hands gripping the bars more firmly. But they were fleeting. For every step forward, there were 2 stumbles back. Alexander watched in silence. His face betrayed nothing, but his eyes followed Maria everywhere. He saw how her hands trembled when she thought no one noticed, how she winced each time Ethan fell, how she carried the weight of disappointment on her small shoulders but never let the boy see it. Again, Ethan, she urged softly one evening, kneeling before him. The boy's face was flushed, sweat dripping down his temples as he leaned heavily on the bars. I'm tired, Maria, Ethan whispered, his voice cracking. It hurts. Her heart twisted. She reached up and brushed his damp hair away from his forehead. I know, little one. But you are stronger than you think. Every step you take is one closer to freedom. Do you trust me? Ethan nodded weakly, though his eyes glistened with tears. He tried again, forcing one foot forward, then another. But his legs gave way, and he collapsed into Maria's arms. She caught him just in time, her own knees buckling under the weight, but she held him tightly. From across the room, Alexander finally spoke. His tone was sharp, almost cruel. Maybe this is pointless. Maria's head snapped up, eyes burning. Don't say that in front of him. Alexander's jaw clenched. I won't watch my son break himself trying to chase miracles. He has been through enough. Ethan buried his face in Maria's shoulder, trembling, as if those words had confirmed his deepest fear, that he would never walk, that he was broken. Maria held him tighter. Isn't breaking. He's fighting. And if you can't see that, then maybe you've already given up on him. The words hung in the air, sharp and raw. Alexander's face hardened, his fists tightening at his sides. For a moment, he looked as if he might explode, but instead, he turned on his heel and left the room without another word. That night, Maria stayed awake by Ethan's bed, her fingers gently stroking his hair as he slept. She whispered promises into the darkness, promises that she would never abandon him, that she would help him find his strength no matter what it took. But her own doubts gnawed at her. What if Alexander was right? What if she was only giving Ethan false hope? As dawn crept through the windows, a sound shattered her thoughts. The heavy slam of Alexander's study door echoed through the mansion, followed by the crunch of shattered glass. Maria rushed down the hall, her heart pounding. She found him standing among broken shards of a whiskey bottle, his face buried in his hands. When he finally looked at her, his eyes were bloodshot, his voice hoarse. You think I don't want to believe. His words trembled with something deeper than anger, fear. You think I don't pray every night for my boy to stand again? But I can't bear to watch him hope and then lose everything. And Maria froze, the pieces falling into place. Alexander wasn't just a cold, distant father. He was a man broken by helplessness, trapped between love and despair. For the first time, Maria stepped closer without fear. She placed her hand on his arm, steady but gentle. Then let me carry the hope for both of you. Please don't take it from him. Alexander's eyes searched hers, torn between resistance and surrender. But before he could answer, a weak voice floated from the doorway. Papa? Ethan stood there, his small body leaning on the wall for support, his legs shaking, but he was upright without the bars. Both Alexander and Maria froze, their breaths caught in their throats. Ethan's lips trembled as he whispered, I don't want you to give up on me. The boy's knees buckled, and he nearly collapsed. But Alexander lunged forward, catching him in his arms. For the first time in years, the hardened businessman wept openly, clutching his son as though letting go would mean losing him forever. Maria stood silently, her own heart pounding. Something had shifted in that moment, not just in Ethan, but in Alexander. The walls around his heart were cracking. Yet, in the midst of that fragile hope, Maria couldn't shake a haunting question. If Ethan did walk again, what would become of her? Ethan had stood, if only for a moment, but Maria's greatest fear was just beginning. Would Alexander keep his promise to adopt her, or had she unknowingly tied her fate to a man whose love might still have conditions? The night after Daniel's first steps felt unreal. The air in the house carried a strange silence, the kind that wasn't empty but brimming with unspoken emotions. Eliza lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the moment over and over. Daniel pushing himself up, wobbling, trembling, yet finding balance where no one thought he ever would. The tears on Richard's face, the boy's smile, her own shock. It all felt like something too powerful for words. But as dawn broke, doubt crept in. She had done her part. She had kept her promise. Now came the question she dared not ask. What will become of me now? When morning light spilled through the curtains, Richard entered the room with Daniel leaning against his side. He didn't stop practicing, Richard said softly. Daniel's eyes shone with excitement, and in his hand he carried a toy car. Look, Eliza, Daniel giggled. I can walk to you. And he did. Each step small but determined, bridging the space between them until he collapsed into her lap with laughter. Eliza held him close, her tears falling freely. Richard sat across from them, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Eliza feared he would dismiss her, send her away now that the miracle had happened. But instead he said, You've done more for him than all the specialists combined. You've given him hope, and me too. Eliza lowered her gaze, unsure how to respond. I only wanted him to believe he wasn't broken. You kept your part of the promise. Richard continued, his voice thick with emotion. Now it's my turn. Her head snapped up. His words felt like thunder in her chest. Eliza, he said slowly, I want you to stay. I want to adopt you just as I promised. Not out of pity. Not out of obligation. but because you've become part of us. Daniel needs you, and so do I. Eliza's breath hitched. The orphan in her. The child who had cried herself to sleep countless nights longing for someone to choose her. Could hardly believe what she was hearing. You mean it? She whispered. Richard's eyes softened. I've spent years believing money could fix everything. But you've shown me that love is the true healer. Yes, Eliza. I mean it. Daniel tugged at her hand. Please say yes. Be my sister. Eliza broke down, hugging the boy so tightly she thought her heart would burst. She looked at Richard through blurred tears and nodded. Yes, I'll stay. For the first time in years, the grand mansion didn't feel like a cold monument of wealth. It felt like home. But as Richard watched the two children laugh together, a shadow crossed his face. He had made a promise and kept it. But he knew promises had a way of pulling threads from the past. There were things Eliza didn't know, secrets he had kept locked away for too long. And now, as the sun rose on their new beginning, Richard wondered if the truth might one day threaten the fragile family they had built.
This is not just a story of wealth and poverty. It is a story of hearts that dared to heal each other. A poor girl's love gave strength to a broken boy. A cold millionaire found the family he never knew he needed. Sometimes, the greatest treasures are not found in gold or power, but in the hands we choose to hold and the promises we choose to keep.